All right, John Emberson. Round 2, second week in a row, dude. This is
That's right.
Would you imagine that? I already informed everyone last week that this would be a regular occurrence, especially because I need people to talk to, and well, who wouldn't want to talk to me all the time every week? So.
And I need people to talk to. So how well does this work out?
You needed people to talk to.
Yeah.
Look at that. Sweet. All right. You have to give an introduction of yourself, but you can't say the word I.
So. So third person then. John likes to talk on podcast.
John Emberson. This is me. I like to. Oh wait.
Oh, you said I. It's hard. It's hard.
Second introduction.
Are you being serious? Should I not use I?
You don't have to. Yeah, because I do not think I can do
this is actually kind of confusing. You already know who You already know who this is. No.
You already know who this be.
the SoundCloud rappers that you've never heard of before in your entire life. You already know how this goes. No, I don't. I don't know how this goes.
Never heard you in my life. Oh no, John Emberson.
John Emberson.
Okay.
One of Evan's best friends from high school.
You don't have to. You don't have to. This is John Emberson. He was on the podcast last week, and the podcast, some podcasts before. Best friend, world traveler, motorcycle rider, mechanic,
car enthusiast, outdoor enthusiast, anything outdoors,
fashion icon.
No, not even close.
And sad boy. That's
sad boy.
And sad boy.
I saw that picture, by the way, on my phone. I think I was gonna add it to my my background, the sad boys that you created with the explicit content. I gotta have that for my background.
Yeah, that's good. It can yeah, it's funny. Cool. So John, thanks for being on one more time, for many more to come. So today, actually, you know what I was thinking about, because you brought up a good point as we were talking right before it started being recorded. Was the idea of maturity. Like, maturity, John? Because I know you to be the most mature person I've ever met. And
that's not true at all, dude. If that's the case, you're screwed, man.
All right, maybe this way. No. Obviously, no, I obviously, I know that's not true. No, I was kidding. No, but obviously, maturity comes in different ways. Maturity comes, and I feel like maturity comes in so many different ways, but we're constantly we're constantly evolving in that aspect. And I feel like there's one type of, I think there's different types of immaturity and there's different types of maturity. You know, it's like you can compare the immaturity of being a teenager or being a young, right. Being a teenager and you're screw this, screw that. I don't care about anything. This is all bullshit to me. And then you kind of grow out of that when you go through your young adult life, and then you kind of realize, okay, maybe me as a 18, 19, 20-year-old kid, I was pretty immature in that respect, you know what I mean? And then you grow into maturity of knowing yourself, and I think that's what your 20s are, you know what I mean? And this is kind of a conversation that me and my partner Dorsey have a lot, which is what the 20s mean to people, you know what I mean? And I'm 27, you're 28, right? Are you 27?
No.
27?
20.
No, 20.
I'm 20.
I'm 19. You're 27 still. Sorry, I missed that. I always think of you as 1 year older than me, because I know you're the oldest out of everybody. I always forget.
Yeah, but only a couple months. October. So I'll turn 28 this year.
You're only my best friend, dude. I don't know if I can remember. No, so yeah, 27. We're both 27. So, oh no, sorry, I'm 26. What am I talking about? I'm 20. How did I forget my age, dude? I'm 26. That's why you're a year older than me. You're 27. Okay.
No, I turned 27 this year.
Wait, you turned
Even I'm,
27?
I'm
Wait.
still 26. I was gonna say, I was like, maybe I'm wrong. 27. I thought I was 26.
I literally. This is how I know I'm getting
was
older.
like,
The first time in my life I have ever forgotten how old I was.
You were so confident. I was like, oh shit, okay, maybe I'm 27 then this year.
Yeah.
I was like, wait. I was like, when did I turn 27? I remember turning 27.
I don't remember turning 20. Yeah. Yeah, literally, dude. What is
I was
going
like,
on?
I'm pretty sure I'm 26. I've been telling everybody I'm 26.
I've been telling people I'm 26, so I really hope that's true. Yes. Okay.
No,
yes.
26. Yes, 26.
Okay.
I turned 27 in October.
Yes. And
you're
I
26.
just turned 26. So
Yeah. And
I just turned 26. So
I was gonna say, I was like, I'm only a year. Well, I'm only a year older than you by just a couple months. So
yeah, you're probably like you're 10 months older than me or something like that. So cool. Now that we got our ages established,
Jesus.
This is how you know we're smart and mature.
Yeah.
Right. Now, so I've just been thinking about maturity and like how levels of maturity come with different stages of life. And obviously, I can't speak for what it's like in my 30s or 40s because I'm going to be in my 20s forever. Everyone knows that. So, like, what has it been like for you going through your 20s and kind of experiencing different stages of maturity and immaturity?
Well, I think that, like, it's like what you said. It's what's interesting about maturity is like I feel like you can have maturity and immaturity in like so many different aspects in your life at so many different times in your life too. So it's like even like if like let's go back to like when we're in high school or something like that, and we're in our teens, and it's like we knew other people that were our age that were like, oh wow, they're really mature, but then like I'm sure you talk to someone that was our age and we look back and be like, that kid's got a lot to learn. Like even the mature one of the group was like, you'd be like, you're going to be learning a lot. And it's like, I can't help to think, well, I know now, but like that's going to continue happening every time you get through a decade in your life of like, in your 30s and then in your 40s. And it's like, you talk to people or you talk to your parents and you're like, oh yeah, I remember what like the, changing to 20 to 30 was like a big deal, or like, 40 to 50 was a big deal and stuff like that. And like, I've gone through a lot of experiences until then. So, so like that part that like, I feel like that's the part that I learned in my 20s is like the transition between like the decades of like when you're in your teens versus when you're in your 20s, and then when you're in your later 20s, and then like, starting 30s, I'm sure is a different mindset. Yeah. But then, also like at the same fact, you have like maturity levels on different like aspects in your life. Is like you can be mature financially, like maybe you're 18 and you're already like very financially mature in that aspect, but like as far as like socially, you were like very immature and like you didn't know how to be open-minded, or like you're very glued to like one aspect in your life. And it's like just because you're technically mature on one level, you still are lacking in others. So I think as time goes on, that I'm realizing is like I can get to a mature level on one aspect of my life, but like that doesn't stop me from like learning all like knowing that I'm immature in a lot of other aspects in my life. And I think that's what's been prevalent in the in my 20s is like learning that I'm just because I like felt like I've matured a lot in the last 2 years, like doesn't mean that I'm not immature on a lot of other aspects in my life still, That's what I learned.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it's like when you just this reflection of yourself, you're like, yeah, I was pretty stupid back then. And then you realize like you're also stupid now. You just don't know in which ways. I feel like I think that a lot.
That's how I feel.
I feel like I think that so much where I'm just always constantly like, how am I fucking this up right now? Like how am I not doing what I'm supposed to be doing right now? Even though I know, like I could just due to the sheer lack of unawareness, you just don't know what you don't know. And you have to go through experience, and that just takes time. And I think that is the main point of it all is the experience. You know, no, you could be the most intelligent, most mature person for your age, but at the
Right.
but at the same time, you don't know what it's like to be, I don't know what it's like to be 75, 80, who's lived a full life. You know what I mean? You don't
Right.
even, it's
Right.
like, that just comes with age. And, it's even 40, 50, 60 years old. Those are ages where you have more experience. And you can have a lot of experience as a 26-year-old, but you could also have a lot of even more experience as a 40-year-old. You know what I mean? That's just the nature of it. And you can't do anything about that. And that's fine. But at the same time, experience doesn't correlate it doesn't completely match onto maturity levels. So, you could be a 45-year-old, 50-year-old man and be incredibly immature in many,
Yeah.
many ways with a lot of experience. But, it just depends on who you are, how much, I think so much of it does have to do with self-reflection and how self-reflective you are, and how much you've actually been called out on a lot of the things that you shouldn't have been doing, and how much of the stuff that you've recognized within your life that have been positive for you, and that you should continue doing. So, I think it kind of with both of those in mind, I think that kind of helps at least helps at least start what the maturation like process is like this self-reflective nature of how you are.
Yeah, but I think also it makes a good point to make too is like what you're saying is like just because you're forced with experiences as you get older. So like on that aspect, like it does help you through your maturity on different levels, but like it also doesn't directly correlate that like because you're 30 years old that you need to be mature on these levels. It's like some people don't learn it till they're 50 and like and then you become, you're immature on one aspect of your life until you're 50 and then you're like, wow, like, you know, I never came across this certain type of experience to make me think about this other point in my life a different way until now, and then I realized how like immature I've been on that,
Mm-hmm.
point in my life and until I had to go through this experience. So it's like just because you're in your uh older years, it doesn't mean that you are never going to be mature on some aspects either. So
Yeah.
I think we all learn a different thing. It's kind of like what I was talking about is like some people you meet and they're like some people you meet and it's like a good example is like you meet people in high school and they're mature, they're like, I want to be a freaking doctor,
Mm-hmm.
like I know that's where I need to be, and you're like, holy crap, like you're like, I wish I knew that, but I have no idea. And like people are still figuring that out and they're 60 years old, like basically should be retired, and they're like still like, I never really found the like thing I needed to do in my life or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And some people learn it when they're freaking, fresh out of high school. They know exactly where they need to be. So it's like people have different maturity levels that come to them at different points of their life. Doesn't necessarily correlate directly with experience sometimes, but it is a huge factor. It's important role to feel in order for you to become more mature in your life. You need to have experiences.
Yeah.
And 20s is like 20s is definitely a weird age for sure, because I have the same feeling too, dude. It's like um what am I doing now that's wrong? Because I know I'm gonna look back and be like, oh man, I was just a kid. It's just like, because I
Yeah.
I do that now, and
Yeah.
and it's funny because that's another thing too. Is like I don't know if you've had this also, but like I've been so hard about myself of like where I was in high school or even before then, or just like growing up in general, and I'm like I just look down and I just like shake my head, and sometimes I'm just like ashamed of like some of the stuff I've done, or
Yeah.
like just really confused on why I ever did it in the first place, and then you know well, there's a couple of factors, obviously. Like, number one, you're a kid. You're still developing. Like, you can't, like, hold all this stuff against you. Like, you should be held accountable to some extent, of course. But, like, you're still a kid. You're still developing. You haven't fully processed things yet. But also, too, it's like, at that level of your life, that, like, the maturity levels at that age were, like, at such a different, like, um, standard. Does that make sense? Like, so
Yeah.
like when you're in 20s, like you should have like
Mm.
20s is when you should like really start like focusing on like what you really want to be doing with your life, and like maybe start to like really try to figure it out. And then by 30s, I would say like people can kind of, wrap your head around like what you need to be doing and like be
Mm.
solidified in that. Like on average, like obviously that there's a lot of things that play into that, but like it goes the same when you're in your teens. It's like you didn't have to focus on being like, oh, I'm open minded to religion or to politics or to people that share different views with me or whatever. It's like at that age, like your maturity levels is like just like, oh, are you doing well in school? Like, are you showing up to class? Like you can be considered mature if you would just show up to class and do your homework. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was the maturity like baseline when you're in that kid. So it's like you can't blame yourself if you look back and you're 15, 16 years old and you're like mean to some kid because he had a different viewpoint than you, but you
Yeah.
were going to school. It's like obviously like we should learn from that, of course, but it's like I can't help it. That's what's gonna be like looking back when I'm 30 is looking back at 20 is like, oh, like yeah, but I just didn't know. Like
Yeah.
I didn't own a house before. I never knew what it was like to actually save money, like
Mm-hmm.
seriously, or like blowing money on like cars or like food is like I'm like, I could have saved so much money and like bought a house earlier, but it's like yeah, but I didn't know like this was the time to do those things. So it's like
Yeah.
it's all relative to the fact of like maturity baselines are they are really different in different like decades of your life, in your teens, in your 20s, in your 30s. So you can't be too hard on yourself on that aspect either.
Definitely. I mean, you brought up a lot of good points there. I mean, I think, yeah, being when you're young, you just don't know. And so I remember looking back, like you said, when I remember being in high school, I still think about it sometimes. It always stuck with me. Because I just went along with whatever my parents told me. You know what I mean? And like, it was not in high school. I'm thinking of a specific instance in elementary school where my parents are conservative, and they were during one of the presidential elections. It was John McCain. It was John McCain versus Obama, and I was a kid. I didn't know anything about politics, and so
Yeah.
I was just going along with whatever my parents were telling me, and I remember getting in an argument with this girl who was her parents, she was just recapitulating whatever her parents had said, and so she was like for Obama, and I was like, I don't know why you like Obama, and I was like, I still remember that instance of me just being in because we would have multiple conversations about like we would just be in vehement disagreement of like
Yeah.
the people, and we both had zero clue. We both were in
Yeah.
elementary school. We were like in fifth grade yelling about like politics, like we knew anything about it, and it's just like this stupid um, immature like the least informed decision or opinions that anyone could have. And yeah, that's an extreme example because I was a little kid, but there are
Yeah.
other examples like that where I can look back when I was 18 and just did not know what I was saying. I did not know what I was doing. Yet, I actually had like, I was just unaware. Yeah, I had confidence within myself that I was like, I'm not completely like wrong,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
But I was, and I think now like as I grow, I'm just I think what helps me at least with the fact that there's so much that I'm just not mature about, or I'm just not able to comprehend right now, just for whatever reason, is the fact that I am like that is just I kind of base myself and how I operate in the fact that I am wrong about things. Like I'm just thinking wrongly about a lot of things, and that's okay because that's always going to be the case. So I just have to like give myself that. I have to give myself the. I have to like allow myself to kind of be okay with that. You know what I mean? I just have to give myself
Right.
sympathy for the fact that it's just the way it's going to be. You know what I mean? And I'm going to learn. And hopefully when I'm 36, looking back today when I'm 26 and thinking like, yeah, like, yes, you didn't know a lot. Like you didn't know a lot, and then you had a ton of experience ahead, and for good and bad. But at least at 26, you knew you like at least you could, realize that you had so much to learn. And I think that's what I hold with me, and it kind of helps with it. But
no, definitely. I think there's benchmarks in your life, like I said, I think goes back to like, as a kid, you're just trying to function as like a person in society. You're literally just like, okay, how do I like present my dude? Like when back in like high school, all I cared about was like, okay, what do I wear today so people don't think I look like an idiot? Like it's like that was the simplicity of it now. And like nowadays, it's like I don't care. Like even if I go into public with like flip flop and t-shirt and shorts, like I don't care. Like I'm confident in myself that I don't need that stuff. But it's like back then, like you're still like just implementing it. So like those are the maturity levels you're thinking about. That's because it's also new to you. So like of course when you're like like I had the same thing that you're talking about. I had this like insane conversation as a kid, and I always think about it was I was freshman, and I like me, I was like I used to be religious, and like it was like it was very much influenced by my family. And I remember sitting down in a science class, and we started talking about evolution, and I looked over the girl next to me. I was like, "Oh, who actually believes this evolution stuff?" I swear to God, dude.
Yes.
I swear to God. And she kind of laughed, and she's like, yeah, because it actually existed, And then like kind of went on from there. We like argued, and like I just looked back and just like I can't help but laugh at myself. But it's like, but that's the thing is like, okay, like obviously like in high school, like you are maturing more, but like still though, like I still make the point of like even. I remember her, like, the points she was making, she still, like, was, like, new to, it's, like, these big topics that you're finally implementing yourself into. Like, you're actually, like, wrapping your head as a young adult, like, what these, like, theories or, like, what these, like, events mean to you. And, like, you're still, like, formulating your own ideas. And, like, you're heavily influenced by your family and your friends and everything. And, like, that's the base you have to start off with. So, like, just you talking about it is heavily influenced from the people around you, and that's okay because like you have to start somewhere, and I can't help but think that happens like in every benchmark of your life. That happens when you're in high school. You're like learning to talk about the bigger things and like really have an opinion about it. In your 20s, you feel a little more solidified in like what you're talking about, or maybe your 20s is like really being open to every idea and like kind of filling yourself up with a sponge and then formulating your own ideas on it. And then like 30, it's like you look back and you're like I'm really confident in like the beliefs that I have, and like I've had a lot of conversations between now and then of like everything I stand with now, and like because I've had the experience of like talking about it multiple times and hearing different people's opinions and everything. So it's like you have to go through each benchmark, and you can't like be upset because you look back at 20 and you're like, wow, I was really like conservative back then. And it's like, okay, well maybe that's what you needed for you to like implant yourself into like these other ideas or ideologies, just an example obviously. But I think you can't like, and of course like there's accountability there of like you still need to be open-minded. You should do your best, and like exactly what you said, it's like it's a good feeling knowing that that you are, if you accept that you're wrong on a lot of aspects and you're like open and honest about that, you can only go up from here, and you can only look back at your situation and be like, okay, well, at least I admitted that I was wrong multiple times, and I'm still just trying to learn or try to figure out what my own viewpoints are. But, like, you need to have that in order for you to get to some type of, like, idea in your head of what you stand for, or what you appreciate in life. And, like, that takes the benchmarks in life in order to get to those maturity levels.
Yeah, totally. This is something that, because this is what I want to say on that is the fact that maturity, there's so much that experience through life in so many ways forces you to mature, you know what I mean? And there's so many aspects within your existence that you find like, I needed this experience to happen in order for me to get through it. And this is something that, shout out to my therapist that I had, he helped me realize, and I still take it away as one of like the most important things I learned is understanding like I can't be upset. Like when I look at myself as a little kid, like 8, 9, 10 years old, would I be upset at that kid for like spilling milk on the ground or like dropping a glass? Like, of course not. It's a little kid. Like, oh, you're crying? Like, yeah, you're 8 years old. Like, that's fine. You're at a grocery store. You're scared. Like, that's, you know what I mean? It's like, you can't get upset at that kid. for the
Right.
things he just didn't know. He just wasn't developed, like mentally,
Right.
physically, emotionally. All of the things is just not developed. You know what I mean? And so I can give myself the same kindness and the same sympathy when I look back on myself at 20. You know what I mean? And look back at all the mistakes that I made then, and then realize like, yeah, I take ownership of what I did. Like that's what I did. That's who I was. But you lacked the experience, you lacked the maturity, you lacked the emotional self-reflection. That's not your fault necessarily. It's just what the state you were in was. And
Right.
in order to get past that, in order to get through the things that you that were harming you, that were bad for you and other people that you were doing, like you needed to get through the experiences. You needed to like feel the emotions. You needed to go through the hardships and try to make sense of it all and whatever. Everyone has their own journey, but I needed to like learn about myself at that point in order to get past that immaturity, in order to get past the the me that was then to the person I am today. And but I'm not going to be upset at myself for that
Right.
person. You know what I mean? And you could apply this
Yeah,
to,
of course.
just the decisions you make in your life, because everyone's making decisions. Everyone's making decisions that, that are better or worse off for themselves and other people. But at the end of the day, you're doing you're doing what you think is, you're doing all that you can in that moment. And you have to give yourself like that sort of, you have to give yourself that care and sympathy and realize like at that moment in that time, that was all I could do. And you're right. It wasn't the right thing to do. I shouldn't have
Right.
been thinking that way. I shouldn't have done
Right.
those things. That's on me 100%. I'm not taking
Yeah.
that away, but, I have learned through that and now I am no longer I have no longer that person. I no longer think those things. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so
No,
that's
that's
such
where
an important
maturity
thing.
comes from.
Yeah.
Literally right there is learning, looking back at your past experiences and learning from it and being like, hey, I was wrong then. Like I went through that experience and like I said the things I said and like not necessarily I regret them, but like but maybe in some aspects, obviously, depending on how severe, but like maybe you look back and you're like, because I went through that experience, I now know that was wrong, or like I now know that I need to be more open-minded, and that's where the maturity comes from, is looking back at your past experiencing and learning from them, and like and moving on from them, and like trying to like build yourself up from them, versus just like, oh, that was the thing that happened and like I'm the victim and like like people were wrong and I was right. And it's like, no, that's what happens when people are immature at 50 years old.
Yes.
That's the mindset what happens when people are very narrow-minded throughout their entire life. And they just like, there's just on one traveled road and they stick on it. It's like they don't learn from their past experiences, whether it's good or bad, of like, oh, hey, these were the things that like, really built me up as a person, and like really like maybe like speak out to others in a passionate, loving way, versus like, oh no, I hurt a lot of people, or like I insulted a lot of people, or I like hurt myself in this experience, but like, hey, it just happened, like move on. It's like, no, like take those experiences, learn from them, know you shouldn't do them again, or know that maybe you could have been better or do something different. And like and once you learn that, then you realize you're becoming more mature in that aspect.
Yeah. And dude, I mean, I think that's a great point. Like you said, that's how you become somebody who's 50, 60, 70 years old and is immature in a lot of ways, because they just cannot admit to themselves that they are wrong about things like that.
Yeah.
And this is what I don't get, because it's like this, like you can have confidence, but when you, there's a difference between confidence and arrogance. And when you're when you become the person that is just believes that your ideas, what you say or what you think, is the only way and the right way, 100%, and there's no other way to view the things that you hold so close to you. I mean, that's when it becomes a problem. And obviously there are certain examples of certain things where you can point to, like, I think I'm right in this, where it's like, be kind, love other people. Like, that's a pretty basic, like, that's like the number one thing, you know what I mean? So it's like,
I hope so.
You know what I mean? Like, respect other people. Like, that's,
Right.
Like
Basic stuff.
those are like basic things that like
Fundamental
yeah,
stuff.
fundamental things that you know. And it's not that you can't have your own opinions, you know, especially when it
Right.
comes to like your religion or whatever. Like there are many ways you can think about the world, but you have to at least understand. You have to try to understand how other
Right.
people think differently than you, opposite than
Yeah.
you, and
Yeah.
that's fine. And I think like that's. But when you do not admit that, when you cannot look look at yourself and be like, okay, I have a lot of opinions. I think a lot of things about a lot of things. And so
Right.
when I look at that, when I put all of my ideologies on a menu and I look at the list and like choose, you know, one to think about, what does, what can other people, how can other people look at the same piece of paper that you're looking at and think the complete opposite thing? You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's, you know, I think when you come to the conclusion that like they're wrong because they think of the other thing, or maybe, you know, like I just have, you know, you just cannot, when you get angry, when you get upset, or when you like when you, especially when you try to like change or try to like maybe not necessarily change people's minds, but like when you start, you know, harming other people because of it, like
Yeah.
that's when it becomes extremely dangerous,
Yeah.
and you start, you know, becoming somebody that is not necessarily the most loving, kind, respectful person.
Well, there's clear signs, and it's funny because I can't help, like, and I think I know that you do this too, but like I always try to see like where other people are coming from, and it's like I could only hope that like people that like seem to be difficult or like what we're talking about, like immature in their life for like an older age, it's like I can only like just try to imagine. I'm like, I would like to think that they like still see the signs of like that they're doing harm, or like there's something that they're doing in their life that like is not right. You know, like I'd like to think that they still have that in them, because like for me it's like obvious. Like if I'm like upset or frustrated about some scenario that happened, I look back at it, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I probably was wrong on this aspect, or like, oh, I could have done it in a different way, or like done
Hmm.
this. And it's like think that's what helps me, is because like it's clear to me that like if I react a certain way to a certain scenario and then come back and then continue to think about it in like a frustrated or like, you know, upset way, then I know that like there's something that I did that was wrong, or something that I could have done better, you
Hmm.
know. And it's like I like to think that people have that, and like, and I can only imagine that that's what happens because you meet other people, and you can, and I know that you've gone through this too. It's like you can literally meet, you know, like a pastor or something like that. And I've had this experience plenty of times. Is like I've had so many different types of pastors in my life, like when I was growing up in church, and there was ones that like I really respected, and even now I guarantee you, like there's some pastors that I know that I can go up to and have like a really genuine like civil conversation with, and they would just come out of love and respect on both aspects, my aspect and theirs as well. And then there was others that like I would question that, like I know that it would be like, you know, a place full of hate and stuff like that. So it's like no matter what you believe in, or like where you're at in life, it's like if you have that, what I'm talking about, of like being able to uh, uh, think back about your mistakes that you've made and grow from there, no matter what where you are in life, like people can respect that, and like that's how you get along with others.
Hmm.
And that comes in a lot of forms. And then there's other people that are in power, like another example is like your boss when you left California, and you're like, would you do anything different? Nope, wouldn't change a thing. And it's like I think most people in our life that we like actually like get along with and like, you know, talk to would probably admit the complete opposite. They'd be like, yeah, like, you know, I wish I would have done this, or like, you know, like I could have done this, or whatever
Yeah.
the instance is. And it's like because like the people that admit to their faults are the ones that are mature and worth talking to, because they can admit that they're wrong a lot of times.
Yeah.
And that's a better, more loving, understanding way of talking to each other and communicating with people, is
Yeah.
coming from that aspect, from that viewpoint.
Definitely. Well, I can't blame the pastors, John. They're just trying to get the demons out of you, dude. And
I know.
you got a lot, bro.
Dude, friggin', that's gonna take a lot to save me. I'll say that.
John, I don't think it's possible at this
I don't
point.
think it's possible either. They've tried.
John, we've all tried. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of funny. Like you bring up a point of my old bosses, and that was one instance. But I remember, it's funny because you and I's friend Dom, who has been on this episode, on this podcast. I'll link that episode in the description. He and I always joke about this one gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps that we served with, and when we were getting out, he was like, "What are you getting out for? It's literally like you're not gonna be. It's not good out there." Like he was just like, he's like, literally, you're not gonna get paid more than you are getting paid here. And we were like, we still joke about that because we're like,
that's funny.
What we say like, but this is what I realized. This is what I realized about this. Yeah. About that conversation. Was like you have to justify this to yourself. You know what I mean? You have to justify the situation you're in to yourself, or else you're just gonna hate your life and like kill yourself because you're like everything I've done is wrong. And I'm not saying everything this person has done in their life is wrong. I'm not speaking on the guy's character or anything. Right. I'm just thinking, this is when you take that logic of like, all right, this is the way it was for me. I can't really see it any other way working out for anybody else in any other way.
Exactly. Good point. Great point.
Then this is the way it must be for everybody. You know what I mean? And so like that is the most like
that's where immaturity comes from, dude. It's naive. It's being naive about others. It's like, oh well, this has always worked for me. Why would you ever leave this small town? Oh, because there's a whole world out there. No, but like this is only what works. Is that the other side of this world doesn't work that way.
Yes, and that's the great thing about like traveling too, is because you get to experience how people do it completely different from how you do it. And you know what I mean? And it's like, it's amazing to see. It's like. I'm fortunate enough to like have visited, like Asia and seen like how they do it in Asia. And it's like such a completely different way, that people live in Thailand than they do in California where I grew up. And it's amazing to see. And it just brings so much perspective. And I think that's the most important thing that I would say about, just trying to expand your perspective in any way, not just traveling, but it's the perspective that you gain from being able to, not have any idea that this other way exists, yet looking at it and observing it and taking it in and then realizing, that's another way to do it. There's another way to see the world. And that's what's cool about it. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. I think that's the thing is like, you can come off as like, hey, even like back to your example of your boss. It's like, even if your boss was like, oh, like I don't regret anything in my life. Like I can look at myself and maybe thinking that I would say the same thing at that age, but it's like the difference is like I don't regret anything because this worked in my life, and what you're doing is what you need to do in your life, and that's the difference, because when you have people like you said where it's like I had the same thing with me, dude. I literally left my construction job, and there was one guy, and he's like, yeah, you're gonna leave, but like you'll be back here in like a month. You're gonna miss it. You're gonna miss the pay. You're gonna miss the lifestyle. And like still this day, I'm like, no, not like last on my list, And it's just funny because it's like it doesn't necessarily mean that they're wrong. If anything, it justifies for them. That's exactly what they need in life. Some aspects maybe not so much. Like maybe they would be better off in a certain way because of the mindset they have. But that doesn't negate the fact that it's like I think the difference is like. Obviously, we all go through life in a different way. And to be mature about others and how they view their own life is to be like, hey, this is what worked for me. And like, if you want to do the complete opposite because that's what you feel is going to work for you, then like, by all means, do exactly that. Like, don't let anybody tell you that you can't be doing it that way. If it's a guy that's in the military that spent 6 years and he's like, I don't feel like leaving anytime soon, then all the power to him. If that's what he found that he wanted to do, then like, heck yeah. But the difference is like, if you have I think it's only damaging even if you feel like at the time that you're like, this is what I need to do, to put down others because they're not doing the same lifestyle that you're doing is always a bad thing. It's always not see it. That's where immaturity comes from. It's like you could be, 50 years old working at an automotive place, and it's like, hey, like this was the best thing I've done, and like this is the only way to do it is how I did it in my life, and it's like that's the only way it works. And if you don't do the same way I do, you're not going to be successful like me. And it's like, okay, maybe some aspects of that is true, but like just because it worked for you doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody. And if you have that mindset, like how are you supposed to like overcome other like ideas, or maybe like improve yourself, or maybe have other experiences in your life that are going to be better for you, Like I think being stuck in that mindset is also scary for that person, because maybe at the time they think that they're right and it is what they need from them, but like if you're only stuck in that mindset, how else are you supposed to learn from that? How else are you supposed to mature from that?
Yeah, no, totally. And the people that I respect the most are the people that look at like are real and realize like, hey, this has just worked for me, you know what I mean? And they have like
Right.
this is like when I look back in the Marine Corps, the people that I always respected the most were people that are like, okay, like that had spent 20 years in the Marine Corps, or 20 plus years, or a long time, and be like, look, this is what worked for me. I understand why you want to get out.
Yeah.
Good luck. Like there's a lot of opportunity out there. This was my path. This is what I felt was best for me.
Right.
But you know what I mean? And it's like, and then you can apply that. I've talked to a lot of people in and outside of the military, and it's just people that are real, and they understand that there's other ways to live. There's other ways to think. More importantly, you know what I mean? It's like there's other ways to see the world that aren't from your own myopic perspective, and it's like at the end of the day, we are all just experiencing reality through our own consciousness. So like what our own consciousness is filled with is just what we have seen and what we have experienced and what we've interpreted that experience as. You know what I mean? It's not some like universal principle of the universe that like, I mean, you can get philosophical about, but it's like that you have to, as long as we don't take like some solipsistic lens, like I'm the only person that exists, like we admit other people experience the reality as they experience it. And it's all through everybody's different lens, you know what I mean? And so when you take the experience of other people and try to like the doing your best to take the experiences of other people and put them into your own experience and your own reality and your molding of it, then that's the coolest thing ever, because then you're just taking all of experience, you're just taking as many pieces of existence as you possibly can and putting them into your mind and trying to expand that as much as you can. Because if you just get so narrowed down and you only see one little perspective and you only see world through a pinhole, and on your news channels, on your Instagram feed, on your YouTube, like that is the only thing you see, and then that becomes your reality. It becomes your reality. And that's the scary part, because you don't know what you don't know, and you can't get out of that because nobody has forced you to get out of it. And you don't even think you're wrong. That's the crazy part. It's like you don't think that there's anything. You don't even know how there could be another perspective.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That's crazy.
No, it's crazy. That's definitely a good point. I think that the thing that I get excited about is like I meet those people. Like I said, it's like it doesn't matter what background you come from or if I completely disagree with you. There's people that are like glowing on that aspect where they're like, I've been like through a lot of experiences, and like I'm very open and honest of like what my beliefs are, but like I'm open and honest about like every other like ideology that comes my way, and I'm willing to talk about all of those things and like have a conversation. And it's like those are the people I want to be around, and like those are the people I want to mold myself around. It's like I like that, and it's like maybe I'm not gonna be, maybe I don't agree with them 100%, but like just on the pure fact that they're like what you said is like seeing the world for the entirety that it is, and seeing people's viewpoint for the entire that it is. It's people that you want to be around because it's people that you can talk to and like have real conversations with. And it's hard to find those ones because a lot of people, like you said too, are also like, and I get caught up in this too. I think we all do, but it's like if your one viewpoint is one aspect in your life, and you're only being feeded by that one part of your life, like how else are you supposed to know everything else that's going on in your life? And maybe you don't even choose to pay attention. Like maybe it's just like I don't really want to like look at that. It's like, but
Mm-hmm.
how would you know? How would you know there's other viewpoints out there?
Mm-hmm.
How would you know that people function differently if you've never even been in that scenario before? And it's like that's what's eye opening about like traveling is like going and you like you're forced to be with different people with different mindsets, and it's eye opening, you know. And I like that. I think what I learned a lot, and I know I'm sure you can say the same thing, is like I just love the sense of community it came
Mm-hmm.
with when you're traveling because you're forced into it, and everybody that's doing it is like you're forced to be like basically living next to your neighbor that some stranger that you don't even know, and like that can be scary on a lot of aspects, but it also makes you learn a lot of things. And I think the beautiful part about that is like it can come people can come from so many different backgrounds and different experiences and different points in their life, and you get to be right next to them to share that with them. And
Yeah.
I get excited because I've met those people. And I'm like, that's the type of person I want to be. Maybe I don't want to, you know, have the same religion that he does, but I want to talk like
Yeah.
he does. I want the him or her to be the person that, you know, attracts others around them because they're open and honest about themselves and they admit their faults, and they seem like they're really thriving in life because they like are experienced the whole world in entirety, not just through one viewpoint. You know, you meet those people.
Mm-hmm.
They're just
Yes.
there's something about them that's different, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and this brings up the topic of educating yourself. I can't say that. Educating yourself. This is why no, educating yourself and like how you go about educating yourself is like a big way, or sorry, a huge factor in like how you start to form your reality and form like shape your perspective. And you can go about it in so many different ways. But it could be through traveling. It could be through getting a formal education in university. It could be through, just conversations, self-reflection, therapy, whatever. You could educate yourself in a million different ways. But the point of, you can go through experiences without necessarily like reflecting on it and then gaining the knowledge from the experience. And I think that's what I always try to do. I think I probably do it without me knowing, and I think this is probably contributes a lot to some of the successes that I've seen in my life. Is that every experience that I that happens to me, I am constantly reflecting on it. And I know you could speak the same because we have a similar mindset and a mind that works in that way. We're just constantly reflecting on our life and who we are, like ourself. So that it helps so much because regardless of how you begin or what happens to you, you want to learn about what happened, and then you just start reflecting on that, and then you start learning from that, and then it's that constantly trying to pursue that more and more in various aspects, whatever works for you. Whether that's going to university or whether that's just gaining more life experience, traveling, whatever. And it happens in a multitude of ways. It's not just like one way of doing it. You gain experience and as a consequence of that, if you're able to reflect on it, knowledge. And it's important to constantly try to educate yourself in as many ways as you can, because once you stop that, then that's when the brakes start to get set, and then you start coming to a halt on your growth as a person and your mindset. And I kind of wanted to touch on the fact as well that's adjacent to this point is the one that we are constantly we are placed into this like it takes a certain type of mind state to be in, to like be receptive to these sorts of things and like try to do our best to understand topics and understand what other people are trying to say, because there's a lot of things that can get brought onto you that can be pretty diametrically opposed to how you think, that can be pretty jarring to think about. And I know you've experienced this, and I've experienced it, where somebody says something, you're like, that is not, as much as open-minded as we all try to be, there are things that are just not there. You know what I mean? That just don't compute for whatever reason. Maybe it's not necessarily a bad thing, but sometimes it is. And learning how to be receptive to that new information is a huge part about how you become somebody that now, that is, continually growing to and tries to be as open-minded as you can. And also it tries to, continue to be put in that like loving, open-minded headspace where you're not just judging people for what they say, you know what I mean? Because, people have said things to me where I'm just like, I do not agree with that. I don't understand how you've come to those conclusions, but at least I am going to sit with it and I'm going to try to think about it. And I'm going to understand how somebody thinks this way. And, maybe I don't agree with it. And I come to the conclusion, like, I don't think that's right. But at least I'm trying to understand it. I'm not going to, and then I understand, like, okay, at least with some little bit, how they've come to those conclusions, and I'm not going to judge them for it. You know what I mean? And so that's an important. It's important to learn how to be receptive. My point being.
Yeah. No, I think I can only feel like so lucky, and I know we both have this too. But it's like I feel lucky that I can process things the way I do because I know. I know now that like not everybody has that, and I'm like thankful that I do because it's like I like it's a blessing and a curse because it's like I overanalyze everything in my life, but it's like it forces me to like you said, it's like even these extreme things that people will say to you that you don't necessarily agree with is like it forces you to be like, oh, okay, like I am gonna think about it, and I'm not gonna hold that against them, and I'm not gonna be upset with them or like be like, oh, you're wrong right away. I can be like, I don't agree with you, and it's pretty obvious I don't agree with that opinion because of this, and that, or whatever. But it's like I'm thankful that I could be the one to like at least like hold that side of me where it's like I can only be open minded to the way of like if that's what you believe in, then that's fine. If that's what works for you, like here are my thoughts or here are my. But I'm not gonna come off and I know now that it's not easy to have that. Like I've understand it. Even for me, like it comes off of a more natural thing for me, which I'm very lucky with. But like even for that, I have that natural ability to do that. It's still difficult to do, and like I really do have to put the effort into like really being compassionate when those experiences happening. But like for most people, it's like it's the reaction of anger or frustration or be like you're wrong and I do hold this against you or like I never want to talk to you about this or whatever the case may be. It's like that is a natural reaction and like I also can't be upset with that either. Like if I say something to someone and they're like that is stupid, that's the most ridiculous thing I ever say, like I can't be like mad at them for thinking that way because they process things differently than my head.
No, that's a
and
great
I'm glad
point.
I have that ability, like that I could at least be the person to be like, hey, like what you're saying is completely different from what I'm saying, and I don't agree with it, but like I respect your opinion on that, and like you've come to the conclusion because of how you process things and the experiences you've had in your life.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. I think that's a great thing to think about. And yeah, I think it can be difficult, and I mess up all the time. You know what I mean? It's like when somebody says something to me that I'm like I don't agree with, like you have these instinctual, no matter how great anyone is at it, like you still have these instinctual reactions. You're like, well, that is upsetting, or that is like that's not. But it takes this practice of, and like you said, some people have more or less of a predilection to it. But, you take these instinctual reactions and then you analyze them and you self-reflect on them, hopefully before you say anything or say anything too judgmental or upsetting to another person. But you take these instinctual reactions and then you reflect on them in a way that you can try your best. Try your best doesn't mean you're perfect at it. Doesn't mean you're going to do it every time, but you'll try your best to understand where that person is coming from. But, when somebody is like, I don't like these types of people or like super racist or like homophobic or something, you're like, you have those, you're like, ooh, that's not good. You know what I mean? Like you have and I'm not saying it is good. It's not good to be racist or homophobic, obviously, but you can be, and you have to be able to be the person that is like, how did they come to these,
Yes.
how did they come to these conclusions? And it's not
Definitely.
that they are, they were born out of the womb racist and homophobic. It was that they were trained and they were conditioned through their life experiences, through the people that raised them, through the people that, through the time that they spent, around certain types of people, and they've undergone a certain type of life experience that has led them to the conclusions that they've come to, and it's very unfortunate that is how they see it, the world.
Right.
But if we're gonna offer, if we're gonna be able to be a species that overcomes these sorts of issues, being hateful to that other person is not the answer. It comes through, understanding their perspective and trying our best to, with as much kindness and respect and love as possible, to shape those experiences in a different way now, to have them come to a different conclusion. And I'm not saying it's easy or that we could do this for everybody and that's the way, you know what I mean? Like, in a perfect world, yes, but that's not the world we live in, and it's very difficult to try to get a 70-year-old Ku Klux Klan member to think differently about his ideologies.
Right.
But that is the way we have to start viewing things if we're ever going to get past these, this hate and this polarization that we see everywhere, littered across society. And it's just we are constantly on opposite ends. It feels like, at least that's how the media likes to make us believe these sorts of things. And I don't necessarily think that is true. But in a lot of ways, through society, like we get told, like, these are the opposite people than you, and these are our people, and this is, they are wrong, we're right. And we can't, it's not so binary, like, it's not so black and white. We can't just,
It's so true.
we're not. That's not the way the world works, and it's complicated, and there's a mess of things that people go through every single day that shape who they become, and we have to be sympathetic to them.
I think the harsh reality of that too is it's not so uncommon, but it's a lot more uncommon for these extreme viewpoints on every end, not on ends of spectrum, because there's many spectrums, but there can be extreme people or extreme viewpoints, and those are the uncommon ones. And then you can also argue the point is it's very extreme and uncommon for someone to be very neutral about things. It just doesn't happen. Sometimes it does, and sometimes there are people open-minded, but I think the reality of it, that what we need to do to accept the world that we live in, is people are gonna have different viewpoints, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want to have a conversation with them and share your experiences and your viewpoints, then that's great, but don't expect them to change because of you saying a certain thing, or saying because of my experience, this is what's right. And it's that doesn't necessarily mean it's right for them. It means it's right for you, and why can't we come to a place where it's okay, obviously, like you said, there are things that are wrong, like being homophobic or racist and stuff like that. But there's extreme, though I feel like those are more uncommon. It's more uncommon for that to happen versus someone that's just maybe not necessarily racist, but they're just they haven't had much experiences with a certain race and they feel partial to them or something like that. That doesn't mean that they're if they're being hateful, very exactly. If it's hurtful, then I get it. But it's I think if you actually go out in the world and talk to people, it's not really like that, where they're oh, F this one person or whatever. But it's we can accept each other for the life that we're living, and that's okay. We can have the different viewpoints. But as soon as you start hurting other people, that's when it becomes wrong. And I know that happens a lot, but I think it's more common for people just to have opposite viewpoints, because then we can reflect on a lot of different things and complete ends of the spectrum of other people's lives in a completely different aspect, and we have a lot of things in common. It's I told you, I think the greatest thing I learned when I traveled in Europe in particular, and some of the Balkan countries especially, because it's so different there, is number one, people want to be by family and friends. That's it. Number one is I want I learned that it's family is everything, friends are everything too, and like having this like community of love is everything, no matter where you're at. And number two is like I just want to be able to afford to go to work and have enough time with my family and then put food on the table like the
Mm-hmm.
and a roof over my head. It's like there's like when you really boil down everything, like no matter what mindset you have, and it's just nice to know that like the average person wants
Mm-hmm.
those like general things. Like it
Mm-hmm.
does just boil down to those simple things, and it's like those are what's most important in life. It's not like, it's like, oh, just having family and friends is like, of course it's just one aspect of your life, but that's the core of living life is like those things. So it's like it's nice to know that like most people can agree that's what you want in life, and it's like okay, everything else outside of that, like philosophy and like religion and different political views, like all of that outside of it is like of course it can be important to your life, but like at the core it's not. If we need to get along with each other, it's like we should focus on like the loving part of it, not all this other. The hatred comes from different viewpoints, and it's on things that like aren't the most important parts of our life. I feel like it can be, I get that, but it's at the core it's not. we
Yeah.
can we can we can I like that we can base each other off of the fundamental things in life, and they're usually pretty similar for each
Yeah.
other.
Why do you think it is that those are the fundamental, relationships, friends, family, food on the table, providing for yourself and your family and your loved ones? Like, why do you think that is the most important thing to people?
um It's a good question, man. I don't know. I think it's like as you get older, that's what like really confuses me. Is like, I mean, I don't know. It's weird, dude. I think it goes deeper than that. I think this is like the like philosophical side of it. It's like we're like our chemical like chemistry that happens in our brain. It's like unbalanced if we're not next to these people in our life, and it's like it's not like you chose to like be born by your mother, or like you chose to be born with your sister next to you. Like it's just this person that you're just living with. You just come into reality, and now this is a person you call your sister. It's just like I can't explain those things. Like I can't explain why having a home is a lot more comforting than being on the road and traveling all the time. Like it's hard to actually justify why that is, but it it maybe that's the purpose. I don't know. Like I think it's too broad of a question to answer because it's a lot deeper than that. Because you can't just flat out say, oh well, I think we all want to be close to a family because they're family. It's like, okay, but yeah, but what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
How do you describe that? I don't know. It's just that's just what it is. Like I think there's something to be talked about there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean that is our it is our it's like it's beyond I mean it is beyond our species, like when we consider other people and our relationships outside of our bloodline is a different question. It is interesting. I mean, I think it just speaks to the intimacy of our relationships, and regardless of where they are hailing from, because you could have extremely close step siblings or adopted children or whatever, you know what I mean, and you view them as family. Like this is like basically blood, and that is it's because of like such an early age and such an intimate connection you have with people that becomes it becomes a piece of you. And I don't know. I don't. I don't have a good answer either. Psychologically, philosophically, or biologically for any of those reasons.
Yeah,
But,
it is
uh,
interesting.
but it is. I think. I think it is. I think it's one of those things where, um, it's just important,
I
and
think
you
I
have to
think I would.
maintain those.
I think if I can put it in any way, if that question is like, why do you think most people would agree those are the fundamental things that we want in our life? I think it really boils down to like just like tribal, like just like the tribal aspect that we still have in our life. We're still primitive in that way. Is like, and and I don't think that'll ever go away. That's what makes us unique of like how we humans are. But it's like we have the sense of like being by the village. Like you live in the village, and like if a good day is when you have food on the table, and like a good day is when you're dry and you're out of the rain and you're out of the damp floor. Like that's the roof over your head. Like having, yeah, I said picking berries and they're ripe and they're, fruitful, and you get this nutrients from it, and having it on the table is fulfilling. Like that's what you get most excited about that. And same with like, being close to family. And it's like, and that's a crazy aspect too. It's like there's people that like their family's like super messed up, and like it's the worst thing for them. And that's what's also cool is like you can find, just because you grew up with people, and it's like for most people it's nice to know that like you can connect with that way. Is like you live through all these experiences from day one with them. But then you can also see people that like, left their family because it was a horrible situation for them, and then they have this huge community of friends that is their family. So like you can have that too, but I think it really goes back to like when we were first, kind of morphed into being humans, is like our earliest ancestors were like being in a village that worked for them, being surrounded by people that cared, being in an area that was fruitful of being able to have food on the table and having a shelter that they had roof over their heads. It's like, even as complicated as our world is today, from back then, tribal aspect in a tribal time period, we still have the fundamentals of those like couple of things: family, friends, food, and a roof over our heads. It still to this day boils down to those things. I think that just comes from like who we are as humans, and where that comes from, I don't know. That's what makes us unique, I guess.
Comes from the monkey brain, dude.
Monkey brain, dude. That's why you want to hump everything you see.
Whoa, speak for yourself, my guy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, we're all just monkeys. Everything I think, everything that happens, I'm like, why do we monkey? It's because we're monkeys.
It's 'cause you have developing human brain, and then you got monkey brain, and unfortunately, monkey brain takes up most of your brain.
Unfortunately for people like you and I, 95% of that is monkey brain.
Maybe not so much like rocket scientists out there, but for ordinary folks like you and I, it's monkey brain.
Most people out there are like, no, I'd say it's about probably 20% monkey brain. We're like, oh yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's just me.
I guess it's just me who's 95% monkey brain. Like we're all functioning fine with it. It's you guys. You guys are the ones with the problem.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised either. All right, John. I want to leave some space. Because you know what time it is.
It's been too early. Oh, I gotta start being like on that.
It's we're looking for music recommendations, John.
Did you listen, by the way?
Did I listen? Yes, I did listen to them. It's great. You gave me 1 second. I'm on my Spotify. You gave me why can I not find what I'm looking for? Pink Floyd, Fearless, and Dogs. You didn't tell me Dogs was 17 goddamn minutes long, dude. I was
Pink
like,
Floyd.
I was listening to Dogs. I was like, oh wow, yeah. I was listening to your recommendations, and I was like, great. It kept going on, and I was like 10 minutes in. I was like, wait a second, I'm listening. It's the same song.
I know. That's Pink Floyd for you. But the first part of it, the first guitar riff is just so beautiful, dude.
Yeah, Pink Floyd. At it again. No, it's great. It's great. Did you listen to? Did you listen to Slow Dive?
Slow Dive. I did. Yes.
How did you?
Very calming.
Very calming. Very calming.
It's very calming. To be honest, like, if I'm being honest, like I'm not like that music for me, like it's good, and I can tell it's like the better of that type of music. But like for me, it's like it's music I put on the background and I don't like actually listen to. Does that make sense? I'm listening to. Obviously, it's like there, but it's like I'm more in my thoughts when I'm listening to that type of music than actually like embracing the music.
I completely understand. It's like Karangbin.
Yeah.
It's like Karangbin.
Karangbin.
Because Karangbin is the same way. Where if it's like I put it on to relax and to like put it in the background.
Right.
I would say slow dive's a bit different for me personally.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't know how you ever come to those conclusions, and you're wrong. And I was
just what we're talking about. Yeah.
And I hate you for it.
But it is funny though, because like I get it. Like I listened to it, and I listened to like what was it? The popular one, the sunrise.
When the sun hits or something.
When the sun hits, it's obviously a very well put together song, and they're like really talented. But I can tell that it like doesn't do it for me as well as it does for like others. I can tell. It's like I said, it felt like music that I like put on shuffle, and it's just like it just kind of passes by kind of thing.
Well,
Not that it's bad. It's good music. It's I don't know.
Yeah, well, you know what's funny? When I gave you that recommendation, I like when we got off, I was like, I should have given him something different because I did not think that was like up your alley or anything. The only reason I said that is because I was like, I was trying to think on my feet because I was like, oh, I just listened to Slow Dive and I think Slow Dive's great. Dorsey and I were watching some music music videos, and that was we were watching some Slow Dive music videos, and that's why I said it. I wouldn't have recommended be like, oh, John, because I know your music taste and you know mine, so I wouldn't have been like, oh, John's gonna be really into Slow Dive.
No, and that's not the point.
I didn't think you would think it was bad or anything.
No, that's not the point of it. And like you know me, I'm open to any music. I'm open to the most random shit out there, and I'll listen to it. But like that was just my impressions of it. I was like, I don't know, it didn't like it doesn't do what it does for me when I listen to like some like angsty ass fucking punk rock, you know, like it just doesn't. It's just not the same. It's really just I can't describe it. And I know people, and it's funny because I know that people listen to that shit and they're like, "What is this screeching man doing and playing horrible guitar over this record that's way too loud?" And I'm like, I don't know what it is, but I just want to like punch a wall and fucking run up a hill. Like that's
dude,
it gets me amped up.
This is the problem, dude, because me and Dorsey, us sophisticated minds, we listen to music like Slow Dive while you're out there banging your head to Smoko, and we're like, you're like, oh no, Smoko.
That's it. That's I said. That's monkey brain. See, it's a perfect example of why I'm mostly monkey brain. Is because those sounds of like is so thrilling for me.
Yeah. Hey, don't
like Beethoven.
Okay, I don't listen to Beethoven. Don't get me wrong, dude. You know I love punk. I love punk. Angsty punk. I'm all about it. So I am all for the recommendations you got on that in that respect, though. So like, what do you have today?
Okay.
What is your rec?
I have one song that I just added that's pretty good. That was on my Discover Weekly. So shouts out to Spotify and Discover Weekly.
Yeah.
It's "See You in the Ball Pit." It's literally "See
Oh
You"
wait, I know this song
by Camping in Alaska.
I might have heard this song before. See You in the Ball Pit. See You in the Ball Pit.
It's the second to top.
Let me see. Do I have that song?
I don't know.
It's spelled C.
Yeah, C-U and then I-N D-A Ball Pit. Camping in Alaska. That's pretty good.
Okay.
It's a little angsty. It's a little out there, but it's good.
I feel like I've definitely heard this song title before because it is a distinct song title. I could be wrong about it. I don't have it added. I don't have it added, but it does.
I've honestly never heard of Camping Alaska, and I heard that song, and I've been listening to a couple of songs, and they're pretty good. Okay. They're not like obviously like a go-to. Like I'm not raving about it, but it's definitely one that I saw. It was one that I listened to in Discover Weekly that I was like, I'm gonna add that to my like list. So it was worth the like list. Okay,
cool. Yeah, dude. Especially right now in this season of your life, you gotta listen to the angst, dude. You gotta listen to the angsty. See You in the Ball Pit.
Okay, what about you? What do you recommend?
What do I recommend? Okay. Actually, what I will recommend is, since we're on that same vein, I don't know if I've recommended this to you, John, but there's a band that I cannot pronounce the name of because it's in Cyrillic, and it's a Russian band. Okay. I believe they're Russian. I could be wrong about this, but it's in Cyrillic. I actually had a friend that spoke Russian, and they told me the name of the band. I do not remember how to pronounce it, but I will link it in the description. I will send it to you, John. And it's Russian pop, like it's Russian punk is what it is. Oh, and it's sick. So good, dude. It's so good.
That reminds me of that
I believe it's Russian. This is what I don't know anything, but my friend who spoke Russian, this is what they told me.
You know what's funny? That reminds me of that one random one that you sent like, I don't know, a year ago now. But it was like some Russian song, and it almost reminded me of like La Dispute almost. It was like a Russian La Dispute. It was like kind of heavier.
Maybe it's the same band because I have been into them for a while.
It was literally maybe that's what it was. It was literally one song, and it like the title and their name was in Russian. And I was like, how did you find that?
Dude, I don't know, but it's so good. I actually just heard another one of their songs right now. I think they came out with like a new song. And it's very good. I have zero clue what they're saying. I don't know I have no idea what the song titles are. I don't know what the band name is. But it is really, really great if you're into punk, especially when you don't want to know what they're saying. You just want to feel what they're saying. So,
I'll have to look at it. Yeah, send it to me. I'll listen to them.
Definitely.
I'm curious if it's the one that you sent to me. That was like a while ago.
If you like that song, you should definitely listen to more of them because it's very good.
Okay. Yeah. If it's the one I'm thinking of, I remember I listened to it. I was like, oh, that was sick. But I was like, I don't know how to keep listening to this type of music because I can't search it.
I literally don't know how to. I've done the same. I remember I went to search their name, try to find out. I was like, I don't have my keyboard. Does not compute this.
Exactly. You're like, there's literally no tools I can use to find this.
I had to go to my settings, switch my keyboard to Cyrillic.
Right.
It's like, okay.
Try to find the different letters and everything.
Yeah. But yeah, that is my recommendation for the week.
Awesome. And then one other thing too, I know, like I already recommended this to you, but the Tiny Moving Parts, that band, I've been really getting into them. But if you have time,
yeah, I've listened to that time. I knew Tiny Moving Parts.
I know, but listen, have you watched their Audiotree live?
No.
I know we love Audiotree, but like their Audiotree live, it's funny because it's like 10 years ago or like 8 years ago that they filmed it. So it's actually a lot longer than I thought. I didn't know that they were been a band for that long. But anyways, if you watch that Audiotree, they are so talented, dude. Like you don't hear it when you're listening to music. Like obviously I know you heard them and you've seen heard their songs and like their songs are good. But like when you physically watch them play, which Audiotree has a great live set, you're like, oh dang, they're like next level, dude.
Okay, sick. I will listen. I'll
great,
watch.
Great Audiotree session for sure.
Okay, sweet. And shout out to the cute Audiotree girl who hosts.
Oh yeah, I know.
you know,
and Mom Jeans.
Yeah, it's the mom.
It's funny because I'd only seen her in Mom Jeans, because they always swap out with people. They're always swapping. A lot of Dispute has a really good one with Audiotree too, and it's with the guy that does it. The guy that like interviews it is like such a like chill, like laid back dude, which is funny for that band.
Yeah,
to like great. Talk about dark shit.
Yeah. Oh, La Dispute is the most heavy, most heavy. Oh, that's like the most heavy lyrics and bang. Yeah. Like obviously, like there's a lot of heavy, but they
the funny
just
thing is the funny thing is like musically instrumentally they're not super heavy. They're like they are heavy. I would say categorize them heavy, but the things they talk about are the darkest things you could talk about in life. Seriously.
Yes.
Like they're just and he talks about it in his interview, which is interesting, but he's like yeah, we're just like Midwest kids that like want to bring up these like subjects that are like horrible like through music. And it's like it's pretty crazy that there's a band created for that sole purpose, and they do it really well. Obviously,
oh, they're killing it. La Dispute's great. I remember I told you I was like, you gotta run to La Dispute.
Yo, dude, you also recommend La Dispute. I will tell you that for sure, 100%. A great band.
Great band. Yeah, I will listen to. I haven't seen their Audiotree actually. I'll listen to that one in tiny moving parts.
But Tiny Moving Parts, do that one first. That
Okay.
set is so good, man. It's crazy how talented they are when you see what they're doing live. Actually,
Okay.
it's crazy.
Sweet.
But anyways,
I'll link all of those in the description. So, for those for my massive followers here that are
for your diehard millions of followers,
for the ride or dies.
Ride or dies.
For the ride or dies, dude. Oh, you want to know something funny before we end this? My squadron patch, when I was in that thing called the Marine Corps, we had a squad. I was part of a helicopter squadron, and our patch is Dom sent this to me, our friend. He just sent it in our group chat that there's a patch on the wall of the bar in Top Gun Maverick. Our patch
really?
is in the movie.
Sick.
It's like in the bar at a bar scene with by a dartboard, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Is it the old one or the newer one
No, the new one, the Maverick
sick.
one. Yeah.
That's sick, dude.
He was like,
Is
I
that
just
bar-
found this. No, it's not a real
that
bar.
bar-
The
Oh,
first
it's not.
one is. The first one was a real bar. The second one
Oh,
is
okay.
like a recreation. It's not a real bar.
I was gonna say, I wonder if that was like an actual bar, like next to the base or something.
No, it's a movie set. Tom Cruise.
Tom
you know
Gunn.
that guy. Tom Gunn.
The
You know,
boy,
Tom.
the boy
My boy.
TC.
My boy Tom.
The good old Scientologist.
All right, John. Thanks for being
All
on.
right. Yes.
You got any last words for the listeners?
We love you all. Be kind. Be loving. And go skate.
All right, you heard it here first, folks. Bye.
Bye.